Whoa. So you want
Good
me to start?
afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Florida Agritourism Association's series of webinars. Today, we have a special edition for you all about insurance. Everything you need to know as an agritourism operator related to insurance. And our special guest today is Bill Rosselle. He is a true insurance expert, having started his career in Gainesville as an agent with the Florida Farm Bureau, as many of you are very familiar with that organization. And then he opened his own agency in 1981, and which was followed by starting his own consulting company, Rosselle Consulting, Inc., in 1996, that focuses on risk management consulting. Many of his clients, both large and small, are agricultural businesses. He manages the client's insurance programs and other areas of their risk management responsibilities. Bill no longer sells insurance, but he can tell us everything about it today. He is serving on a number of advisory councils for insurance companies, and he has participated in many mediations that involve insurance claim. He has been happily married for 50 plus years, has 5 children and 10 grandchildren. So I pass it to you, Bill, after Sarah gives us some instructions on how all of you can ask questions and participate in this webinar.
Absolutely. So we have a little chat box open that you can see, hopefully. If not, you can please look for it at the bottom of your screen. And if you just want to add some questions in there, if there's anything you need repeated, anything Bill's not covering, we ask you to just type it in there. I'll be monitoring it and we will ask Bill.
Okay. Well, thank you. First off, I want to say I'm not a salesman. I'm not a professional speaker. I don't have anything to sell today. Don't have anything for you to buy from me when it's over. I don't sell insurance. Lena mentioned serving on insurance boards. I used to. I haven't done that in 25 years because I'm not involved with any insurance companies. Our clients are usually fairly good size, and our firm's a small firm, about 16 people, and we do outsource risk management, which includes controlling their insurance, but we do the same thing you would do as a buyer. We lay out the specs of what we need. We go to different agencies that represent different companies and get bids and negotiate coverages, etc. So we're not involved in the selling of insurance. And right now, our firm's packed. So not looking for you to call me because right now we couldn't do anything with the call anyway. So Alan would call that inefficiency, not success. But anyway, one of the things when they called is, there's a lot of concerns going on with the insurance industry right now, getting tighter, especially on farms, farming type risks, agricultural tourism, things like that. I don't have any great solutions for some of it, a lot of warnings for some of it. Y'all have some special protection under certain acts because of being in agriculture. Those don't help you if you're being grossly negligent. They don't help you. You got a great big hole you knew about and they're picking blueberries, or they certainly don't help when you have special events and you're having bounce houses or petting of the animals or, races and things that, people can get hurt. The number one thing I'd say when you have a special event, whether that's a wedding venue or something, that you buy a special event policy. If you have a good general liability policy, like your farm policy, that would cover you if something happens. But typically your carrier doesn't know those things are going on. And it's not your responsibility to tell them if they don't ask. But if you got, hey, we're gonna have a big day out here, celebration, we're gonna have kids out here, we're gonna have bounce houses, we're gonna have you pick, we're gonna have contests, etc. You can buy a special event policy for say $1 million. And I just ran one like one day wedding, 300 guests. $1 million is like $200. You go to 1 million per claim, 2 million for the whole occurrence. It's like $250. Now you start adding other things, bound castles, horseback riding, it might go up a little bit. But what it does it puts a buffer between the claim and your insurance company. Because if that claim gets filed on your general liability policy, when you get sued, they may cover the claim, but then they're going to get off your insurance. So having that special event policy puts a buffer so that if that claim's less than $1 million, your insurance company doesn't get hit. The next biggest thing I could tell you would be that the host of that event, if that's you, then that's you. It's your wedding. It's your, not your anniversary. Let's say that's you're allowing your place to get used for that, but it's your family reunion. What I'm going to say doesn't count much. But if it's like you're letting other people come there to use it, the host couple signing a hold harmless and indemnity agreement. So that's another buffer. Number one, that takes care of their lawsuit if they sue, but also a buffer. And that's something you'd have drawn up by an attorney. We used to issue those when I give a talk or something to say, here's the sample, but find out from a liability point of view, that can come back against me going, well, we're in Georgia and that didn't affect because of Georgia's law. So that's something you get from your attorney. My warnings, the biggest thing I could tell you right now is uncovered claims. And when I was talking earlier, Sarah was mentioning that Farm Bureau is coming back and said, oh, find out you're doing this and that. And I'll just be very blunt. In my opinion, Farm Bureau is not a friend of the farmer anymore. They're coming out with a lot of exclusionary endorsements that are tacked to the back of your policy in addition to the normal endorsements. Right now, they're the latest one we got. We either get them removed or we go to somebody else for coverage for our client. But it's a total pollution exclusion, and your general liability will exclude pollution for things that generate at your premises you generated. So if you got cows, you want to get a buyback for animal waste, so that one of our clients does over 30,000 milkings at one of their sites. That's thousands of gallons of urine going in the ground a day, million a year. The neighbor could come back and go, well, that's in my water. That's why I lost my kids, why this boy's got autism, why I got migraine headaches. And your policy is not going to cover you for that. What the total pollution does is it eliminates a lot of coverage that would be there even with a pollution exclusion, such as food poisoning. They ate our strawberries. That's not on your premises. That'd be covered under a normal policy without exclusion. You're burning trash and it gets out of control. And we just had one of these on a construction site, and a lot of the homes got smoke all over them. They got to be repainted, etc. Your normal GL policy would cover that. With a pollution exclusion, it won't cover that, and a total pollution exclusion tacked on. Just got one from Farm Bureau on the back of it. It's a designated premises limitation. So your claim has to be generated from the address that's on that policy. So if you got vacant land or land at other places that normally would be covered on a general liability policy, even for no charge if they're vacant, the normal policy would cover it. With that exclusion, they would not cover it if it's not specifically listed. So I'm just telling you things that most people if you're listening, you don't read your own policies. The agent doesn't read them either. And if you want to be responsible for coverage, you're going to have to look at your policy, especially the exclusionary endorsements that are in addition to the policy. They're not average and they're tacked on the back. And frankly, insurance companies have learned there's no negative to them tacking those on the back of your policy, because it doesn't change their market share, because you don't know until you have a claim. And if you have a claim, they're going to non-renew you anyway, so they don't care. So that's a negative, and you got to take self-responsibility for looking that over. Blueberry, I made Sarah sent me a list of things that are typically, you can set up corn mazes. I took several of my grandchildren to a corn maze the last several years on a small town outside. There were blasts, they had bounce houses, they had all kind of rides and games. And when you entered, there and you paid to go on, you signed a hold harmless and indemnity agreement. And that's a great idea because those people then can't turn around and sue you, or even if they do, they're holding you harmless, they got to pay the claim. So, and again, a lawyer can draw those up for you. Somebody said goat yoga, which I've never had goat yoga, but I sure see a lot of it. And today, again, there's an example. If you have somebody get salmonella, and I don't know if y'all saw recently on the news, all these people started little chicken houses in the back of their yard during COVID, and now they're getting claims for salmonella and stuff like that. And they're saying, you know, wash your hands, do this, do that. Again, somebody coming on there signing a hold harmless and something can really help you, because even your normal policy, you know, it's going to exclude pollution, and that they're going to consider that pollution. You pick places. I certainly have participated in many blueberry and strawberry, those festivals, etc. If you're selling product from your farm, your general liability policy should cover you for food poisoning and stuff like that, unless you have a total pollution exclusion tacked on the back. So that becomes very important. We have a claim now. We have a large berry farm that we work with. They're all over the country, and there's a suit, somebody claiming that there was some kind of fungi or something on their strawberry, and they got ill and they're coming back. And whether that claim's legitimate or not, they're very expensive to defend. So anyway, there's my make you feel good about what you're doing for a living. Aren't you glad you just don't have to do farming? You got to worry about all this stuff. And if y'all got some questions or subjects you'd like me to touch on, I'd be glad to do that. Not all at one time.
So one thing that maybe you can help clarify, one issue that comes up a lot, you've kind of touched on it, is I have a homeowner's policy on my home, which is on the farm. I have an agritourism operation that happens on the farm, not at my house. My insurance company's dropping me because I'm letting people on my personal property. So do you know of companies that will cover agritourism and homeowners? Is this, we seem to have trouble finding this for our members. What's the solution? I know you said don't tell, but if they find out, you know, sometimes people tell them or the insurance company finds out.
Well, and again, different companies, to me, I'm not here to badmouth Farm Bureau, but they aren't, to me, they're not a friend of the farmer anymore. If you got a commercial auto policy with Farm Bureau right now, I can tell you is extremely more restrictive than any other company I know of. You're pulling a trailer that's got over a 2,500 pound capacity at your trailer. It's not specifically mentioned on that policy. You're not covered. And that's the only way they'll write a commercial auto now, from what I understand. That's not in your best benefit. But in dealing with strictly with the homeowners, again, Farm Bureau is one of the culprits there. And in defense, if you're writing a regular homeowners, it's no different than somebody in town. They got 1/4 of an acre. Can people come on their property? Sure. They're coming over to have dinner. They're playing in the backyard. When you do have a farm, you certainly have more exposure that they weren't anticipating in a normal homeowners. Now, in a farm package, there's several. Great American issues a great farm package. There's several companies that do that. And some companies like Nationwide, Westfield, FCCI, they have ag agents they appoint in the state of Florida, for example. But the typical Nationwide agent can write policies for you, but they can't write the ag specialty policy. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 agents in the state that have the ag situation with Nationwide, a few more with Westfield, but the typical Westfield agent doesn't represent the ag policy, and those are broader. So you may ask your agent, do you have companies that specialize in ag, and are you licensed in that area? Because that's what they're designed for. They're designed for the farming risk. Again, that's addition when you're bringing people on your farm. Nobody cares about you bringing people on your property. But when they're there as a business pursuit for you to make profit, like a U-Pick that type of thing, that's an added exposure because you have a lot more responsibility bringing somebody on your property to make profit than just as a guest. So, but there are policies specifically designed for that. And again, some of the clients we have that don't have a big enough farm to tempt the company to take the extra risk because the premium isn't that high, we tell the company, look, here's what we plan on doing. Here's the safety measures we're taking. Here's the safety procedures. You know, if we got people on bounce houses or somebody watching that, so the 18-year-olds aren't on with the 4-year-olds. We have these hold harmless sign, and we have these special events for things that are a weekend or a few days. So they feel far more protected and willing to, you know, then to come on. But if you don't tell them, if you're just sitting there going, I want to pay a normal premium, but I want to be paid for 2,500 people to come on my property so I can make profit off of them, and there's no extra premium, they're not going to do it if the policy's not designed for that. And Sarah, I can't hear you.
Oops, sorry. We had a couple questions come in.
Huh?
What does the ag non-liability wording protect you from?
Well, exactly what it says. And you're talking about, there's two, there's the agricultural tourism. Is that the one you're talking about?
Cheryl, is that what you mean?
Well, let's assume that is.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What it's protecting you from is if that stems from that. For example, you got somebody coming on to pick blueberries. Okay. I don't know how much of a tourism thing that is. That's a business. But if they're picking blueberries and they cut their hand picking the blueberry, they trip on a normal area. It's like, hey, this is a farm. You know it's a farm. The normal farm exposure, we expect you to understand that. It's uneven ground. It doesn't have payment for you to walk on. There might be a bee or a wasp in the bush. It's not going to protect you if you invite them to walk on there and then you got some hole there. And I don't mean a dip, but a hole, you know, you dug a hole and then just didn't fill it in. Or your German Shepherd's running around and they go, well, I got protections from animals. Well, that's the normal animal in the normal setting of farm. Your German Shepherd doesn't qualify if they runs up there and bites somebody, or you allow other people to bring their dog, hey, pets welcome, and they bring some pit bull and it bites some kid, you know, you're going to get it, in my opinion. But those statutes are made to protect people from the normal exposure. They're doing everything right. They've made safety measures. They've made a good atmosphere for you to come in, and they just get hurt from a normal farming risk and normal exposure. They go over there and climb the fence to pet the cow, and the cow kicks them. You know, that's what that's designed for. But
And Bill, that's what the association worked really hard to pass and protect the statute, the Florida statute that provides the liability protection to farmers who are interested in having agritourism operators. So that might lend very well to the next question. I'll let you handle that, Sarah.
Yeah, so the next question kind of ties in. You appeared to say that the statutory protection does not protect agritourism operators from any of the claims you listed. What does it protect us from?
Okay, you're blueberry picking and they sprain their ankle and fall like they would at Publix. And they turn around and get a suit and say the ground was uneven. Well, if you're at Publix and the sidewalk's got a dip and you trip on it, they're going to be liable. If it's uneven ground in a farm and that's normal, the bees in the bush and it bites somebody, and that's normal. I mean, you can't make sure every single blueberry bush doesn't have bees. Again, somebody reaches over the fence to pet some animal and they say the animal bit them. And you've never had that animal bite anybody before. You didn't know it was a bad animal. It's just to protect from the normal circumstances that would exist in a safe atmosphere at a farm that in another thing somebody could sue you for. And remember, you have responsibility at your end to make, you got to post a certain sign. I won't mention names, but y'all realize somebody put a sign up one time, they didn't have the right size sign or the right exact wording or the right exact color. Okay, now that's out the window. There's constant piercing of protections and immunity. But what it doesn't do is you're just being negligent. We had one not long ago, and they're driving them around in a wagon, showing everybody, hey, here's where the apples are, here's where the peaches are. And somebody leaned back to say something next to them, and the stuff that goes in the side of the wagon, the sides that sit on that have the benches, it broke and they fell out. Okay, that's not a normal agricultural risk. She broke her arm, she sprained her neck. I mean, it's a substantial claim and it's not over. And one of the first things the client said was, well, I'm protected, I'm agriculture. I said, look, this is a railing in a wagon that had a problem that you didn't fix. I mean, somebody should be able to lean back against it. That's what it's for. I mean, you're not going to fall under the exemption for that. I hope that's answering that question. You know,
where do you find the special events form?
Most agencies write it. A lot of agencies specialize in it. So, you know, you just go, look, I'm having a special event, and that's what it's written for. So you can buy a policy that you go, look, I'm having 4 of these a year. Each of them lasts 2 weeks. So I want 8 weeks of this between this time and this time, and they'll issue it based on that. It's normally based on the amount of time you want coverage for the special event. It might be a wedding for 1 day. It might be a weekend for something, a big family reunion.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the number of guests. Like the wedding thing I quoted, it was based on 1 day, 300 people at the wedding, and that's approximate guests. And you know, it's $200. Now, if you said, hey, it's a week and we're going to have bounce houses and pony rides for the kids and animal petting, and it's 7 days and there's going to be 1,000 people there, you know, it might be $1,700, you know, but with that many people there, that much exposure, one person even complaining and they're full of prunes, you know, your defense costs, you hire a lawyer out of pocket, that's gone in the first 2-3 hours. And if you turn it into your insurance company and they go, whoa, what was going on? And they don't have an exclusion that would protect the insurance company and they pay the claim, one, they're not going to renew your policy. And second, you're going to have a great difficult time then, you know, purchasing coverage.
Bill, you and I had a conversation about making sure that the policies, that there's the primary one that's designated. So a lot of our operators will also pull event insurance, which we recommend as a best practice, you know, and of course they have their general liability policy. And you and I spoke about making sure that like who is responsible if there is some kind of claim, and like which insurance company would take precedence.
Well, the reason you bought the special event is you want that to be the policy, and you just don't want 2 policies to enforce. I got both, so now they both have to pay their share of a claim, $100,000 claim. They both pay 50. Okay, your carriers, it ain't going to do you any good. They're going to be mad. You know, when you get a special event policy, you want on there, which a lot of them put automatically, but they'll all put, if you request that on there, and you get certificates for it, that policy is primary and non-contributory. In other words, your general liability policy wouldn't come into play until that policy is exhausted. So if you bought $1 million policy and the claim's 300,000, your policy is not going to get touched. And so you want that policy primary and non-contributory. You don't worry about them non-renewing it. It's over when that event's over anyway. And those policies are not difficult at all to place. I know it's extra money. You say, well, I bought my other policy, so they'll pay a claim. Well, you didn't buy that policy telling them there was all kinds of these special events unless you paid an awful lot of money for that policy. So, you know, they just expect a normal farm operation, not strangers on a bounce house and trampolines and sack races. And, you know, and when you do stuff like that, you want good supervision. We had somebody doing the 3-legged race. They tie the people's legs together, you know, and they're running the race. And the guy running, you know, supervising them was drunk. And he wanted to add fun to it. So he sits over there and he gets some hose and starts squirting them as they're racing. And some lady falls on her son, 11-year-old son, and breaks his arm. And it didn't go well when you get pulled into court and this guy's drunk. I mean, so good supervision is a good prevent. You know, the first thing is to prevent the claim from happening. Then the second thing is, if you can't prevent it, you want coverage when it happens.
Be normal, would it?
Okay, we had another question. A farm is owned by an LLC. This includes the owner-occupied farmhouse, which is covered by the farm GL policy. For personal umbrella, for the owner's own automobile, the owner has tried 2 agencies to locate a personal umbrella. Do you have any ideas?
Well, and again, when you contact an agency, you can contact a little agency and they represent a handful of companies, and you can represent a agency that represents a lot of companies. You know, I don't see any problem. Personal umbrellas, everybody writes them. If there's some kind of a problem, you know, then either you got claims or, you know, personal umbrella, people think I bought a personal umbrella, I'm being sued personally, so that covers me. Well, it only covers you from a personal exposure. You know, one of my biggest challenges is I run into people and they go, well, I'm incorporated, so they can't sue me. The corporate shield, and I'm not a lawyer, but the corporate shield is great for what it's meant to cover. And that is, you can't sue me because I'm an owner. That doesn't mean because I'm an owner, you can't sue me. It means you can't file the lawsuit against me just because I'm the owner of the corporation. So it's a shield for ownership. It's not a shield for activity. I mean, the easiest example, you're driving a corporate car, you're an employee of the corporation, you run a stop sign, you hurt somebody, they're suing the corporation because they own the car. They're suing you because you ran the stop sign. So you got somebody working for you and they got 6 speeding tickets and they hurt somebody, they're going to sue the business and they're going to go, who let this guy drive? And you're active in the business and you go, well, I did. Okay, well, they're going to sue you too. And if that's from a business, you know, then you better have a business umbrella because it'll cover you from a business exposure, whether it's the business being sued or you personally. Many of the farm packages, like Great Americans, for example, they'll write an umbrella over that package that protects you from a personal point of view and commercial point of view. So again, you know, I was talking to one of you earlier and you said, well, I'm going to shop my car insurance. Well, you know, where you go, you call an independent agency. They're not going to State Farm. They're not going to the majority of the companies. So you want to shop your farm. Don't limit it to an agency that's got a few companies. You know, there may be a perfect company out there for you, and they don't represent it. Just like, look, I like State Farm and they're not my favorite, but if I was shopping my auto, I'd get a quote from State Farm. But if I don't call State Farm, I'm not going to get that quote. I get on the phone, I call State Farm, Progressive, Geico, you know, Allstate, you know, independent agency to cover a lot of the independent companies. And if you want the best quote, that's fine. One thing I'd always suggest, and we do it, I think every insured should do it, when a carrier gives us a quote, just like when they give you a quote for your auto, I want the coverage forms with that quote. They're not used to this. They might not even know why you're asking. But if you don't get the coverage forms, you don't know what you're being quoted. I mean, you get a quote on your homeowners. Well, there could be an exclusion for animals. There could be exclusion for trampolines, pools, diving boards, all kind of things that may not be, hey, here's $300,000 on your home. Here's your contents. Here's your liability. Here's your quote. If you don't have the policy, you don't know what they're covering. And take that responsibility for looking at that. You don't have to do it all the time. Just when you're buying the policy, and at renewal, they're obligated to inform you if there's changes. But most people get those changes and they get their bill and there's all kinds of sheets in there they think are advertising, and they may go, hey, this year we added exclusion for animals. Hey, this year we added exclusion for a property that off premises that has so-and-so. If you don't read those, your policy just changed and you don't know it. And I know this sounds silly. It doesn't matter if you don't have a claim. But when you have a claim, that's the only thing you have maybe standing between you and bankruptcy. You're on mute again.
Sorry, a slip and fall incident occurs on a farm. Please provide standard operating procedure by manager to document the event.
Well,
so if
first,
that happens, what should they do?
Well, the first thing, Mary slips and she hurts herself, and it should be immediately reported to somebody responsible for that at the farm, and they should write a statement up, and they also should talk to the person that fell. Now, normally the person's more embarrassed than they are anything else unless they have bad intent. Okay. But hey, I'm sorry, I'm fine. It's to document that, to write it down, to get their phone number. And I would, if they tell us, we're calling them the next day to see if they're okay. Hey, I know you fell. Well, my back really started bothering me last night. I went to the emergency room. Well, then you better report that to your carrier, because sometimes the carrier's hearing about the claim from the claimant before they're hearing about it from you. But how that person's treated, again, unless they have bad intent, well, I'm going to fall down, I'm going to sue you. Not a whole lot you can do other than turn that in. But a lot of times the people don't have bad intent at all, but they aren't treated right, and that turns them into a lawsuit. Almost all your policies, there's a liability limit, and they're separate. If you look at your policy, whether it's your homeowners or your general liability, there's a section called medical payments. And it'll have 2,000, 5,000, something like that on there. And those payments have nothing to do with liability. Those can be volunteered on your part. So the person says, I'm okay. I just went to the emergency room last night and they told me to do this and this and that. I think I'll be fine. Well, they're going to incur a deductible on their medical, and they may not, and then they're going to think you should pay it. And if they think that, they go to attorney's going to sue you. Where you can, if you look at your policy under medical payments, they're not connected with liability. They're volunteer. So you can go, hey, look, what's your deductible is $300. I'd like to take care of that. Whether you pay it out of pocket or turn it into your insurance company, they'll pay it. You don't have to be liable. I mean, B could have bid them. If you want to take care of it, and you got medical payments on your policy, just like your homeowners, you can volunteer that. Now you do a bunch of it, they're either going to remove the medical payments off your policy or cancel it. But it's there to prevent a lawsuit. But if lawsuit might come only because you didn't follow up with the person and take care of it. But you want it documented. And if the person has a complaint, like, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to take care of this? That needs to be turned over to your insurance company.
For ticketed events at a farm, does a hold harmless and indemnity checkoff at the checkout on website, is it recommended? So in other words, when they buy their ticket online.
Well, you cut out again.
For ticketed events at a farm, does a hold harmless and indemnity checkoff at the checkout on the website, is it recommended? So in other words, when people buy tickets online, can you check it off on the website?
Okay. I don't know if it can't hurt. It's not as good as somebody signing in person because they go, I didn't check that. Somebody else bought my ticket for me. Again, that's just my thoughts. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how that works. But I know when we have to get a release and it's sent off and it's signed online, we get a copy of the person's driver's license, it's witnessed and it's notarized. You know, you're not going to do all that online. The most effective thing is one in person because the person that's there that got hurt signed it. So you'd have to ask a lawyer about what the enforceability is of one signed online and somebody checked the box.
Is it practical for farms with frequent events, like 2 times a week, to take out special event coverage?
I'd say no. If they're having 2 times every week, which, you know, they could have that special Wednesday, come get ice cream, whatever. They need to incorporate that in their main policy also, so it'll fall under their umbrella. And again, there's policies designed for that they know that's what people do. I mean, one of my grandkids, I have 10 of them, they love going to the thing called the Flip Factory. It's just a giant room of a ton of trampolines. People are running all over the place. They got places you can dive into places with big foams, rope crosses where you fight each other in the middle. I mean, they're fully insured. I mean, you can buy insurance for that. Now, when you're buying your tickets there, each person buying a ticket signs off on a hold harmless agreement. But those are insurable. I mean, so if you know what you have, again, a lot depends on the agent. Do they have a company that'll do that? I mean, I hear all the time people know what we do and they'll say, well, I couldn't find insurance. My agent couldn't find insurance for that anywhere. Well, that agent can't go everywhere. They have some assigned companies they're licensed with, and that's where they can go. Now they can go to a master broker that has other companies, but then now you're at a whole nother level. Those people are never going to talk to you, meet you. You aren't going to meet the insurance company, where there's people that represent those companies directly. So when we ask an agent, what markets would you like to go to? We say, if you represent them directly, put them on this list. If you represent them through a broker, they go on a separate list. Because if we got somebody that asks for example, Great American, and they represent them directly, and somebody else is going through a broker, then I'm going to use the person who represents them directly because they can have direct communication with the company and have an influence on what they do.
Carl has some great questions. Thank you, Carl. What kind of policy includes event coverage by default? Is there specific language to look for?
Well, most policies, a typical general liability policy does not exclude special events. I mean, yeah, and I think I was talking with you earlier, Sarah, you take your homeowners. If you got a standard, for example, State Farm, Allstate, Nationwide homeowners, and you decide to have a rodeo in your backyard for fun, and you're going to have 3 trampolines there with no netting, you know, and grease the pig chase, you're covered for that. And now they don't know it. If you call them and ask them and go, hey, I'm going to have a rodeo in the backyard, am I covered? Yes. And if you had that, we're going to get off your policy. But I'm saying a typical general liability policy covers that. If you want not to be non-renewed, if you have a claim, then you got to go, I need a policy. And they'll go, okay, then we're going to charge you extra for that. Okay. How many times are you going to have it? What is it? How many people are going to come? It's a lot different if you got 20 people coming for homemade ice cream and you got 1,000 people coming that are going to be in a lot of, you know, more dangerous events. But, you know, then that policy is either going to just raise the premium or they're going to attach a special event type endorsement that gives you, and then it's audited at the end of the year. You expect it to have 102 special events. You expected them for last to 2 days. Well, you only had 50. Well, you get money back. We had 150, you owe money. Because you're not always going to guess exactly what you're going to have.
I don't see any more questions. Does anyone else have a question for Bill?
I had a question for Alan. Is he still awake?
He's still there.
He's muted. That's a good idea.
Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can now.
Okay. I wanted to say something. For every event that we have, we require our client to buy an event policy, and we use an online service called the eventhelper.com, and you can get a special event. And we build it in, and we tell them up front that we have them sign a hold harmless and require them to buy the event insurance. And it typically runs around $1 per guest. So if you have 200 people, and that's with alcohol liability too, by the way. So it's less if you don't have alcohol, but it never runs over $1 per guest. And it's easy to access. And we use it for every event. It's a requirement.
Yeah. And that's perfect when the other party, it's their event, not yours. They're at a wedding, they're having a family reunion, they got a big anniversary thing. And when they buy it, they issue you a certificate naming you as an additional insured, and you can have a hold harmless that comes with that. And that and right on the certificate, it should say that, you know, this policy is primary and non-contributory to any other policy that would apply. So number one, they should be willing to buy it. Like Alan said, it's not very expensive, $1 a guest, but also to remind them they're the insureds. It not just protects Alan, it protects them too. And you invite somebody there and they go, look, you didn't tell me the event was going to have this, and my kid got stepped on by a horse, or the golf cart that's driving people back and forth from their car to the thing ran into my kid when he blitzed between the cars to hurry up to go see the cows. So it's good for the person having the event, and they're the ones buying it and paying for it. You're getting a certificate. You need to require the certificate stating you're an additional insured and the proper wording. But like Alan, most people are, Alan can tell you, it's not hard for them to do that at all. You can provide them the information, they go right online and do it and get a certificate issued for you.
Cheryl, you had a question.
Hey, thank you, Bill. This is really good, by the way. Thank you. I used to work with that.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah. So here's my question.
Okay.
On the agritourism language, I understand what you're saying. Activities consistent with what a farm normally does. When you bring a bounce pillow out, that's not what you typically do on a farm. But so at a farm, let's say that you're an agritourism operator and you have chicken feeding, which is something you would typically do on the farm, although you wouldn't necessarily have visitors come out and feed chickens on the farm. So I know this may be more of an attorney question, but if you have something like that, like when the kids are petting the little baby goat, like a petting zoo or something along those lines, in your opinion, is that something where you could look for some protection by the no liability for agritourism related operations? It gets foggy for me. I don't really, and we do a lot of that. I don't think
well, that's what it's designed for. Is it isn't designed, hey, the normal operation and everybody's there already. It's designed for guests going on there. I mean, the purpose of it was to protect you from third parties, not just people that are normally on the farm. And so typically, my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, I'd say yes, there's some protection there. But they can always pierce any immunity by what they consider gross negligence. So you got the kid, the 5-year-old's having a blast, throwing the little chicken feed out for the chickens, and the rooster plops up over there and spurs him and puts his eye out. Okay, you're probably going to get it. You know better than to put a 4-year-old over there. You know what roosters do. You put that kid in a dangerous situation knowing that. So, and that's always what the plaintiff's lawyer is going to claim is you didn't do your due diligence. This is not a normal risk to stick a strange kid in front of a rooster. Now, he trips and falls, he eats some of the feed before you can get the mom can get their hands on the kid, and they throw a bunch of feed in their mouth and they start choking on it. I think you'd be protected. But again, when it comes to the plaintiff lawyer, they always feel they can pierce these things. And they all have case law and precedent where somebody did pierce it. It's one of the biggest things, it's a big deterrent. When that sign's out there and people see that, a lot of it, it's good protection in the right situation, but it's also a moral deterrent that, hey, it's like you go to the flip factory and you fly off and break your leg, you signed something saying, hey, it's a flip factory. You run like crazy, you jump off, you break your leg, that's on you. And sometimes just that prevents the thing from going to a claim. Where if they hadn't seen the sign, they hadn't signed the form, they might feel more free to call an attorney. If they call an attorney, the attorney's going to find some way to get around it, if nothing else, to make the insurance company just pay some money to make it go away.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Suppose someone wants money for medical expenses related to a medical event. Is it ever recommended to pay these directly, thereby avoiding notification of the insurance company?
Well, I'll say yes, in the right circumstances, but you don't want to do it without a release. We do it for our clients all the time. They slip and fall in a store, stuff like that. We call the person and they go, well, I did incur this and I did that, and say, well, look, what are the medical bills? They're $200, or my deductible is, but if you're going to pay something out of pocket, which sometimes is a good idea to keep it from hitting the insurance, you got to get a release, because otherwise they can take the money and turn around and sue you. And now you admit it liability, and it's worse than if you didn't pay them anything. The other thing is, if that person's looking for something, you send it into the insurance company anyway on a report only, and tell them, I plan on taking care of this out of pocket. Because you don't want to go, I'm going to take care of this out of pocket, and you're going to pay it. You pay it and you don't get a release, you haven't done anything. But when you go to pay it and you don't report it to the insurance company, and then the person gets the release and they go, I better run this by my lawyer. And they take it to the lawyer, and now you get a lawsuit. Now you turn it into the insurance company. They're going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. You were supposed to let us know the instant there was a threat. So we send a lot of claims into insurance companies, and it goes report only. Okay, we plan on taking care of this ourselves. And if we can take care of it very, very quickly, we will get them. We did one the other day in a restaurant. They said, it's not really not your fault. I should have seen that. They comped their meal, and we sent them a $200 gift certificate to the restaurant to sign a release. We signed it, signed a nice thank you note, and that's it. But we've had those happen, and a year later, we get a lawsuit. We had this happen last year, and our client gets a lawsuit, and they started going to the chiropractor, and they've been going to the chiropractor for a year, and we get this $300,000 lawsuit, and we sent to the insurance company because we'd done a report only, got a release. We sent that, and they sent the attorney the release that the lady had signed at the time, and that was it. It was over. She didn't tell the attorney, well, I did get, this meal ticket. I did sign a release. Well, that's what the release is for. That's all the insurance company is going to get when they settle the claim. But you better have a lawyer draw that release up to have that there. So, it's a proper release. It meets Florida law. It deals with bodily injury and property damage, etc. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so you think this is good advice, back it up by an attorney.
Right. So getting clients to shop and buy a special event policy is sometimes not practical. Can the farm take out the policy and charge it to the customer?
If the customer is willing to do it, yeah. You can say, I'm going to buy a special event policy, and part of your fee is paying that policy. And I mean, that's different than like Alan mentioned he's doing. He puts that burden on them, leads them to the site, so it's very easy for them. But if they go, look, I just don't want to bother with that, you get it. Okay, fine, you get it. And, you know, as long as they agree to pay for it, that's just part of the fee.
Okay, and then do you recommend the barn, an event barn, get special events added to the policy and have the customer get special events policy as well? So they both have it?
Well, you can, especially if all you're doing is adding a double protection. If you're going to have a single event policy, not a policy, if you got a major policy all year long that covers special events, it'd still be great if they can get special events because it puts that buffer between your policy. There's a client probably 6 years ago, they had 7 claims in 1 year. The largest of those claims was like 140 grand, which is today's not a big claim. But all of them were taken care of by the special event policies they required the host of those things to do. So we had a renewal on our client's special event policy, went very smoothly, no increase in premium. I can tell you, if they'd even had 3 claims on that policy, it wouldn't have got renewed. So an extra buffer's always better.
Very good. I guess we're nearing the hour mark. Does anyone else have any questions? Any other scenarios that you want answered? Feel free to type it in or unmute yourself.
Yeah, and let me throw something out there while you're waiting on that.
Mhm.
If you got a farm, a lot of people feel it's agriculture, I don't need a work comp policy. Okay, here's my recommendation. I don't care, get a workers' compensation policy. If you look at any liability policy that you carry, I don't care if it's your auto, I don't care if it's your general liability, every single liability policy that you carry excludes suits coming from an employee injury, whether that's from the employee, from their spouse, from the manufacturer he sued because it went bad and they came back on you. If that lawsuit against you comes from an employee injury, your general liability policy won't cover it. So if you don't have a workers' compensation policy that will cover that, I mean, any work comp policy would, the employee gets hurt, that's covered. You're defending that claim out of pocket and you're going to pay it out of pocket. And you can say they don't have to claim, they could claim work comp and you fight that. You don't have a work comp policy, you lose that, you're paying it, but just they sue you for liability. So one of the advantages of a workers' compensation policy, everybody knows what work comp benefits are, but the other half of that policy, which is on all of them, it's mandatory, is employer liability. And that's exactly what it's for. So people get off, well, I got a farm, I'm exempt. Okay, well, you're not exempt from a lawsuit from the employee when the tractor went bad. And if you don't have work comp, they're not paying you.
That's good information. Thank you.
And this has been very invaluable, Bill. We really appreciate your expertise, and we want to thank everyone for being on this webinar with us this afternoon. You can always contact us with more questions. We'll be happy to send them to Bill and get your response. We probably have some answers for you already. Any final words, Bill?
Well, I just want to, I don't mind that insult. There's valuable and there's invaluable, you know, just like there's accurate and inaccurate. So you could have waited until everybody was gone till you told me it was worthless, but that's okay. Alan expected some wise comment from me before the end, and I didn't want to disappoint him. You're welcome, Alan. It was my pleasure. You know, farmers are the ones started this country. I wasn't raised on a farm. In the old days, it seemed like everybody was on a farm, but I've always greatly appreciated that, not trying to blow smoke up somebody's skirt or anything, but that God bless you. Of all the things we might be short on, gas, your air conditioner went out, flat tire in the car, the farmer's taken for granted. I mean, Right now, people might realize something, hey, baby formula. Okay, well, all of us take a formula, it's called food. All of it gets where it's going by some truck, and all of it got there from some farm. So if the farmers were one big union and went on strike, that lasts about one day. So my family's always appreciated the farmer, and I thank all of y'all for what you do.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great evening. And thank you again, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
God bless y'all.
Thank you.